Hello, Culture Matters Podcast. Here's a quote just for this episode. Every great institution is the lengthened shadow of a single man. His character determines the character of his organization. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Today, I'm joined by a regular guest on the Culture Matters Podcast. If you're listening to this, it's October 14th, 2025. Charlie Kirk, the late Charlie Kirk's birthday. He would have turned age 32 today. Two kids, wife, founder of an organization, Turning Point, founded in his late teens, who was murdered, assassinated, depending what context you're looking at it. Recently, I believe September 10th, 2025. And I'm joined today by one of my good friends, regular on the Culture Matters podcast, Jeremy Adams, to share some thoughts, words on Charlie. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey Jay, yeah, thanks for having me.
I think we talked that day.
We did. I was just shocking. I was on um a meeting, like actually with a potential client, so there was, pending revenue, and I have kind of like my X page open, kind of just refreshing every 60 seconds to see what's going on. And I saw that close-up video shot that everyone saw when you're like, oh shit, this is really bad. And I couldn't even focus the rest of the day because it was pretty gruesome. Um, Thought a lot about that too. I think that's one of the blessing and curse of X is they are a free speech platform. And it's pretty disturbing, but I do think it's important that we see some of those details so we can understand the magnitude. Because if we wouldn't have seen the video footage, I don't think it if things are gonna change in a positive manner, I think it takes some level of disturbance at a deep in a deep way like that. So, but yeah, it was awful, and obviously a little bit of time has passed since. But yeah, super unfortunate and disgusting.
I wanted to share this in the intro. I got a little caught up, but we've had some really meaningful conversations over the last few weeks with many of our regular guests on the topic of Charlie, who he was to them, and what he may have represented to the culture. And no one that comes to mind, I believe, knew him or had a personal interaction with him. But actually, you are our first guest that did have and spend time with Charlie in a business context, at least in some degree of conversation. So
Yeah.
I I'd like to explore some of what you picked up and like, there's been so much overwhelming opinion of who he was, who he wasn't. How about the being able to hear from somebody that actually did shake his hand, look him in the eyes, and have a conversation?
Yeah, so we had dinner during COVID. I think it was summer of 2020. We have a mutual friend, a close mutual friend that's just kind of hit me up last minute. He's like, "Hey, I know you're familiar with Charlie. He's actually in town. You want to come to dinner with us?" So I was living in Orlando at the time. So we had dinner in Southwest Florida. So I just drove down there. I was excited to meet with him. I brought him. I'm involved in a company called proudpatriots.com. So I brought him a bunch of like Trump bobbleheads and kind of some of the stuff. And yeah, I mean, he was pretty popular then, but not nearly as kind of what he became really over the last 5 years, especially the last couple of years, and how he impacted the election and just as he's just continued to blow up on social media. But I mean, he was exactly like you see in in online in person. I mean, I'm conservative, but I would say I'm a more just right of center, even like libertarian, kind of classic liberal. He's a true conservative, so we agreed on, 80% of things. But since then, actually, I probably have actually become a little more conservative than I was in 2020. But that was when, like, I remember Charlie had a scarf over his neck because there was those stupid mask laws. And so remember, like, a lot of people would just wear those,
Yeah.
like, they're not actual masks. They were just those like things you wear when you're mowing a lawn or whatever kind of silly stuff. So I remember him actually, we took a picture after and he has that around his neck because of how silly the time was. You had to like cover your face to get to your table, which is just insane. So we obviously agreed fully on how silly the COVID laws were. But yeah, man, he was just a super genuine guy. I just remembered this when all this went down. And this is, keep in mind, our business was blowing up, and so we actually had a deal with Parlor kind of working as well, and I just wanted to be as focused as possible. He brought up, he's like, in hindsight, I should have pursued this more. He's like, what if you guys just ran my whole ecom? And this is before he was like big, and I'm like, yeah, well, our store's kind of blowing up, and there
Huh.
probably could have been something there if I would have pursued it. But just we were in
Wow.
a few other things, and I've always been kind of a busy guy, so it was one of those opportunities where it just kind of lost focus. But yeah, super friendly guy, friendly debate for a few hours, and had a good dinner. And we were actually in talks with our mutual friend to set up another meeting. My friend Jeff was trying to set something up, and unfortunately, like everything went down. But yeah, man, just overall nothing but positive things to say about our interaction.
What what was the conversation like? Was he curious? What were some of his core values? From a if you're like reflecting on that time, even what's unsaid, like how he thought, how he showed up. This is a business meeting essentially with his
I
mutual
mean,
friend. Like, yeah, that's an interesting opportunity to gauge who he was, the man, not the hearsay you hear online, all the different like opinions, like I said.
yeah, I mean, the first part of our dinner, and granted, this was 5 years ago at this point, so I'm not gonna remember like too many specifics. Um, but I have to imagine part of it too was a guy like that. Like all he does is talk politics. So I remember the beginning part of the dinner. I was with it was four of us at dinner. I felt like near the end it was just me and Charlie debating the entire time and kind of soaking up the conversation because people, if you know me, I like just will Jay and I will argue for hours about stuff, you know. So
That's
but
awesome.
I think it was just super personal, like, hey, how's this going? What's going on in your life? It was just very, again, it was 5 years ago, but it wasn't like we sat down and just started diving deep into debating politics. It was just kind of more, I think he had just moved down there to Florida at the time because of COVID. Don't quote me on that, but I think if we look it up, that's when he actually at least had a residence down in Florida. So he was talking about that, and we're right in the height of COVID. So I think how silly the world was with COVID going on, it was hard not to at least talk about that. And then from there, we just started talking about everything you can imagine.
At the time, he had to be like 26, 27.
Yeah, he's yeah, super young guy. Very tall guy. I mean, we're seeing like the videos now kind of going viral of him like playing basketball and football and stuff, like throwing a football, but like I do remember him being taller than I thought. I'm 6 foot and he was taller than me. So
26, 27. That's when I wrote 30 Days of Thought. To think like you have a meeting, then 5 years later, we're talking him now on a podcast on his birthday. He's 32. and he's not here anymore. He was a content creator, he was a podcaster, he was a what how would you even define what he was? He was more than podcast and a content creator.
Yeah, I would say just kind of a thought leader, like leader of a movement. I mean, he was a young conservative Martin Luther King, I would say. I mean, but I think at first, because I had a thought like that, like right after the assassination, and it sounded like, hey, how can anybody be compared to MLK? But for just like what he did for under 30 conservatives, I mean, you could argue he's the reason Trump's in office. And whether you're for or against Trump or whatever, I mean, the amount of impact he had in an organic fashion, just going into colleges and putting events together and debating people. And there's clips, I mean, there's like thousands of hours of footage, and there's a few clips where maybe he's kind of mean and puts people down and things that are people are really trying really hard to paint a narrative of him as this bad person, or certain people are. But 99% of the clips, I mean, he's super respectful, willing to debate someone that completely disagrees with him, and that's admirable. And again, I don't know their exact financial situation of Turning Point and all that, but it's a lot of reports that have come out too that he, for the first X amount of years, didn't even pay himself a salary. I mean, he was clearly passionate about what he was doing and was doing something much bigger than him. So that's respectable, right? For people like us, the fact that he would commit his life to something he believed in.
The audience may not know you had a podcast and have it, the openly outspoken. You went out of your way to have conversations with people of different disparate ideas, opinions, thoughts, debate them, open that forum. You just mentioned Charlie would go to these schools and have those conversations. Why is that important to you?
I think that's one of the most American things possible, is just exercising your First Amendment right and solving things with good conversation and good ideas rather than violence. So I think that's the only hope for humanity, is being able to, and that's definitely what Charlie did. I mean, I don't know if we could point to somebody in our lifetime, you and my lifetime, so since 1990 or so, that's had a single bigger impact on like shifting voters' mindsets just with debate. Um, so yeah, and either way, like if the left wants to win elections, they're gonna need people to shift their voters' mindsets and their direction. And yeah, I mean, it's really hard to do, obviously, in modern time because of just the social media silos and things. So he was able to go there in person, try to cut through the noise, and actually turned young people from, left to right of center, or independent to right of center.
If you look at how he approached things and others in that, let's just focus on the right side of the aisle for a moment. Some of the pundits, um, what does were there, what was different about him, how he approached it versus some of the others? There are other voices that have conversation, but what do you see different about how he did it, or maybe you don't see differences?
Well, colleges and young people are inherently left leaning. So I think he just went to the people that, and they also don't vote at the same rate that older people do too, right? So that was like, I don't know enough about the voter data there, but like he also encouraged people just to vote in general. But yeah, I think he just was willing to go to a place where statistically people are going to be against him. I do think there are other people that do somewhat similar, but not at the volume that he does. Like Bill Maher, who I'm a big fan of, like he'll go to like he'll have people from all over all different types of political mindsets on his show. But I mean, and Charlie knew like there were tons of interactions where people would come up to him and confront him and put their hands on him and like he would just it wouldn't phase him at all. Where I mean, we've seen certain comedians and certain thought leaders just cancel their tours because they couldn't or didn't want to deal with the pushback on college campuses. And that didn't phase Charlie one bit, which is admirable. I mean, he basically went to a place that he knew he was going to get a lot of pushback. And that obviously changed over time too. I mean, that's the crazy thing is over the last couple of years, his events started getting more and more popular because I just think there's just a movement of young people uh, leaning more conservative. So it became a little mainstream, I would say. It's kind of flipping the script a bit the last few years, but for a very long time, I believe he was unpopular on campus.
I do you have any thoughts on how he would have the conversations? Because there's something there I want to pinpoint. Like the fear I would, well, there's a fear, but there's also um I want to pinpoint how he would have the conversations. Like it's like somebody comes up to the mic and they aren't necessarily respectful or representing super, what, implicit openness to have a conversation. It's more a neg. Now he is in a position of authority despite being in, the trenches, right? And because they have the mic, he has the podium. What about your thoughts on how he would have the conversation? Because
Yeah,
I saw, there's other people. Well, I'll digress for now, but I'm curious
you
of
mean
your
like
how he would.
was it a true debate? Is that what you're kind of saying?
No, yeah. Let me give you my whole proposition first. Then that's I'm from observing how he showed up. There was an open spirit. There was a degree of compassion.
I think for the most part that's true. I mean, again in hindsight, and I'm a big Charlie Kirk supporter and fan, but I think as adults, and that's just kind of like a big challenge I have with modern politics is like if you're on this team, you have to fully support this team. If you're on like it's so silly. You know, in a magic wand scenario, maybe he would go out of his way to invite more. And again, I know he had some of these. Like he went on Bill Maher's podcast. Like he would definitely communicate with like more sophisticated, knowledgeable, left-leaning people. I think college kids are somewhat easy prey because clearly they're like, and again, on either side, they're not like super life experience. They clearly just are speaking a lot of the talking points that they're
Yep, yep.
like right. They're not like a really sophisticated liberal that's going to be able to debate a conservative, which so Magic Wand scenario, he went out of his way to have maybe more of those, or did some sort of like, some intention to have some real debate. But I mean, as far as I've seen, at least for the most part, like there was an open mic, so it was like partially on the students. I'm sure there's some more qualified debaters than some of the ones we would see. Uh,
Did you ever see him be cruel?
um, I think maybe not cruel, uh, but and this is where I would say like him from the place of authority. And again, I think compared to everybody else, he did a great job. So if you look at it in an ecosystem
Relative,
of
you're
like,
saying?
yeah, relative to what other people are doing, I mean, he's like in the top 1% of being willing to have this open debate. But and again, I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not even trying to like shit on Charlie. It is hard, but like I think there would be too much playing like kind of side insults, side things. And if you truly want to have a debate, I think debating on the context is important. And like I saw uh one a week or two ago about a guy that was like seemed to actually be super smart and well researched, and it was like a vegan debate clip. And like Charlie was like kind of, again, making a few
Snarky.
jokes and not taking the debate super serious. So again, that's like me being nitpicky. But I mean, as
I mean,
far as
that's
anything
healthy.
else we've seen, especially mainstream, I mean, he was probably the most, kind and open debater out there, uh, that was available to the masses to see.
Do you think he was getting better with time?
I think so, because I think he probably figured out that if you're actually trying to change somebody's mind, being mean to them is not a good way to do that. I think if you like truly have these people feel heard and hey, I understand why you may feel this way about these race issues or big corporations or whatever. And then just, have you ever considered why Democratic Party does A, B, and C and why this is if you watch the clips where it looks like he's actually changing people's minds, I feel like is when he was in his like most kindness and openness to just listen to them.
Do you think there's any connection with his, what do you think about his growing faith?
That's a good one. And that actually did come up at our dinner because I'm more agnostic. I'm not, I have been more and more open to faith as I've gotten older. He clearly is a person of faith, and that was really important to him. I don't know enough about the connection with how he treated people, but I do know it influenced his certain aspects of his politics for sure, which to his credit, I think he would often say, um, this is my belief, but I don't think you should be like in prison for that. And I think that's the American viewpoint is my belief is this because of whatever reason, because of how I grew up or because of my faith, but you know, he wasn't super um, he was vocally like anti like crazy trans movement, and I think, you know, but like he never said, hey, this should be illegal or these people should be harmed or these people are less than us. I think like as an American, you can kind of distinguish the two. And I think he was pretty good about that. So I think, yeah, I don't know how much faith influenced how he treated people, but again, for the most part, I'm like just being nitpicky. I've watched a lot of clips. I mean, compared to everybody else out there that even attempts to talk to the other side, he's in the top 1% of
Hmm.
being respectful and hearing the other people's opinions.
I I yeah, I want to try to wrestle with this for a second because I I think that's partly why it's been so painful on both sides. Me, and I'm going to define pain as in those I've talked to that I have been deeply influenced by Charlie's example. Maybe they, you know, they align with his politics, things that he represented, and so it's more of the pain is reflected in grief. The pain is reflected in, sadness and tears. On the other side, the pain is reflected in contempt and rationalization and apathy, and like there's pain on both sides. But I want to grab like talk, how he would have the conversations. You're saying you see ways he could have done it better. I think that's a testament to your innate mentor quality or advisor, leader. You're always trying to make people better, right? The bar's so low. So you're saying relative to everyone else, he's like so good at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what if, my take is like a part of why I think it's so painful to lose him in that way
I
is
think he would have became like the best in the world with time. I think if you look at his more recent videos, I actually feel like that's when he was probably the most respectful and willing to um let people share their thoughts. And yeah, I think he would have probably become the best or one of the best ever with time for sure.
I want your opinion on this. Like, the thinking is like, because we've had this conversation over the years in different ways, on or recorded or not, what I'm about to kind of bring up. And now Charlie is killed. It's like, whoa. So both conservatives, they'll have their opinions, and liberals will have their opinions, and they're going to be opposing on different degrees of significance. How we have the conversations reflects something different. It's like reflective of our characters. How we have them at scale is reflective of the culture. Culture is the personality of the organization. So the personality of the country. If Charlie, he could have done a little bit better here or there and could have improved, sure, we could focus on that. But he might be in the 1% of someone that's having those conversations. You know, what does that mean for our culture? The bar is so low.
Yeah, I mean, again, and just to say, I think he would have just probably become one of the best, period. I don't know if you saw or know who Van Jones is, but I saw like he reported, and Van Jones is on CNN. He's a Bill Maher regular. He's a very, very intelligent left of center pundit, and he apparently he said, I guess him and Charlie were DMing about having a televised debate or something. And like again, I think that would have been really exciting too. Because what's exciting about that is that's where people like Charlie can have his mind changed. And I think that's how I think my politics has constantly evolved and kind of bounced back and forth because some of the, some super successful people I know like lean left and they challenge my mindset on things. So I think that would have been uh interesting to see is and I believe we're gonna see more of that in coming years. I actually think there's gonna be more debate with people we disagree with. I'm hopeful of that because I think most rational people are just kind of tired of the crazy ultra partisan stuff.
Hmm. I should probably say, like, to the audiences, I've spent my whole career helping people in power have difficult conversations. Dr. Peterson says conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. Partnership conflicts, partnership dilutions, C-suite engagements, helping people have hard conversations, helping people in power have hard conversations. This was somebody that went into places where their ego would be in check, what, hundreds of times a year. And like, you're saying that he converted people to his ideas. Well, how do you do that? Well, you don't do it if you call them names, if you're mean to them, if you're disrespectful and contemptible. It takes something special to like overcome that in the moment. And I think it has something to do with love. Like, even if your ideas might even contradict, degrees of love, there was still a lovingness about how he showed up. And I wonder if,
I
and not
agree.
always, okay, yeah, like
Yeah,
I'm an
yeah.
asshole
But
too.
I mean,
Uh,
as much as one person can, I think it's hard. Like, again, when he's just going on campuses and there's just like hours of footage daily or whatever, it's like, of course, there's going to be some interactions where he gets a little annoyed, or maybe he didn't get a bunch of sleep the night before, or he's dealing with something in his personal life or business. It's like, yeah, I don't think it's reasonable to expect every human to just be perfectly polite. But for the most part, I mean yeah, love. He was definitely like as loving as one could be, I would say, or pretty close to that based on just everybody coming to the mic and just disagreeing with them. It's like that in itself is a drain of energy, and I'm sure sometimes it's just frustrating or whatever. So
Why do you think it's been so upsetting for people that didn't know him and haven't had dinners and
yeah,
don't even know what his politics was?
well, just to be clear too, and I'm not saying you're saying this, I'm just being crystal clear. We didn't have a ongoing relationship. That was my intention as of recent, as of 2025, to meet with him and to get him involved. And so I was going to do everything I possibly could to have that relationship with him. Um,
Well, that's sad in and of itself.
but I think it's just somebody that made such a movement and did everything the right way to be killed for his thought process, I think is what's so saddening. That's the most, that's something out of Soviet Union or the Middle East or something like that, right? That doesn't seem very Western. So yeah, but I do think he's going to be one of those people that is mentioned for decades, if not longer. And I think it's going to inspire. We talked about this. It's just going to make a bunch more Charlies.
Well,
So,
I hope it makes more Charlies in the sense that people that'll be willing to have open debate in as loving a way that they can muster, not just a bunch more people that just agree with his cliff notes.
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
And I'm saying because I really think you would like, how do we honor Charlie? Everybody on both sides of the aisle embody a willingness to, this is how I take it. Show up, be as graceful as you can, get better as you age, come closer to faith, a faith that helps you. See, I have a theory that he got closer to faith because imagine being pummeled with rocks every day. Like, how do you actually burden that? I don't think
that-
you could do it as an individual. I think you need
that's a
God.
good point. Yeah.
Like, and what's sad, if like it's like kind of overwhelmingly sad, is he was coming closer to his convictions in God, and he's, you know, and then he gets killed. So it's like, I hope for him that there is an afterlife. I hope for whoever's listening to this that there is an afterlife for whoever you are that's listening, for you, like that there's somewhere that you're gonna go if you're on a high of your life and you're operating at every level of what me, whoever's listening, that your thoughts, your words, your actions are congruent and you're like really authentic, and then you get killed. I hope that there's something next for you.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I look at when the people that were laughing and kind of glad that he died, like I said, I think they're in pain too. They might not be able to see him because the convictions that they're living their life out were challenged by his word. But
Yeah, that's
laughter,
terrifying. Yeah,
yeah,
anybody that would be celebrating death because of a difference in ideology, which like the irony of his ideology is it's just kind of like a classical conservative ideology. Like he wasn't like a right extremist. Like if you just kind of growing up in a small town, like a religious conservative American that's been around for 50, 100 years, like it wasn't like he was like wanting death or harm on people or anything. It was just He was just a religious conservative that was well principled and did his research and um, did everything he could to get his point across.
What
But
do you
yeah,
think it says
his
about the
views
culture?
represent a lot of Americans for sure.
What do you think it says about the culture that dialogue is that dangerous?
I mean, I think it's a lot of young people in general, and obviously Valerie, as you know, my new wife, she comes from Ukraine. They have real hardships. Um, when you're there's that famous quote where something along the lines of great times create weak men. We have such little real hardship in modern society that words become so insulting and so painful because their lives are actually so easy. And that includes you and me, right? Like at least as adults, like compared to so many other places of the world. Um,
I agree.
so I just think it's a lack of perspective, honestly. And that humans just crave some sort of bigger purpose and we're meant to have hardship. And if you don't have that, you find hardship. And I think that's kind of what's going on with a lot of people in the United States. Like Valerie sees it a lot. She'll tell me just with like young girls, like she's 24 and just like her maturity level, what she's accomplished, kind of what she's gone through, like battle scars, not literally, but her family battle scars literally. Compared to just a typical 24-year-old girl that's in the US that's, just graduated college, starting their first job, kind of like still living with their parents, just hasn't really had, like real life hardships. Like they've never um had to invade or, evacuate because of bombs or never been drafted into the military or they always we overeat if anything. So not only do we know when our next meal is, we like as Americans we're gluttons, right? It's like what real challenges do we have? Um, we don't, not everybody gets their own single family house. Like young people have to have roommates longer than their parents did because, like
It's so profound. I was reading The Joyful Wisdom on the plane back from a work trip yesterday. Nietzsche's, one of his later works, Aphorism 338, The Will to Suffering and the Compassionate. It's rather long, could be a podcast itself, although it's 3 pages. It would take a couple hours to unpack, but there's this part here I highlighted, just the one part, not the whole thing. But if if you are unwilling to endure your own suffering even for an hour and continually forestall all possible misfortune, if you regard suffering and pain generally as evil, as detestable, as deserving of annihilation, and as blots on existence, well, you have then, besides your religion of compassion, yet another religion in your heart, the religion of smug ease. Ah, how little you know of the happiness of man, you comfortable and good-natured ones. For happiness and misfortune are brother and sister and twins who grow tall together, or, as with you, remain small together. I could keep going. It's really, but now let us return to the first question. How is it at all possible for a person to keep to his path? But it's about the importance of suffering with self ownership, self revelation, self discovery, self concept,
Yeah.
self development, all the, and in turn, maybe happiness. It's a pursuit, the pursuit of happiness. Um, and you're saying the entitlement, the ease, right? The
Yeah, and there's of course things we should work on as a society. I don't think you can be like, yeah, tens of millions of Americans don't have insurance, health insurance, and there's like a lot of things that we can be like, yeah, there's of course always work to do, but it's like relative to area of their time in human history. I mean, people can work from basically anywhere. They have access to every information. They can keep in touch with friends and family. There's, so many forms of entertainment, like just relative to any other
Well, I
time.
guess now that I think about it, there's whole cohorts of people that, if their identity is in question within our society, then they're in pain. Then
Yeah, that's
they're
a
in
big part of it.
adversity. So if they look at him as like Darth Vader
Yeah.
because of the media machine, because of the low bar that's set with people being so disrespectful to one another, and that's like, where do we go from here? I guess is the is where do we go from here, Jeremy? What do you think? And how do we honor Charlie, you know, while still potentially disagreeing with ideas that he represented? Like you said, you didn't agree on everything at your dinner, that you respected him and were pursuing, um, how do we honor those that fully commit to their ideas?
Yeah, I think you and me should just commit to starting a show together where we invite on people we don't agree with. That's actually how I think you just make impact is just if enough people have more dialogue with again and their vision too. I think that's the thing is like if they're like if like us like a left of center viewpoint, if it's such a strong viewpoint, then maybe they could convince me that that viewpoint is better too. So it's like it works on both sides, but I think if we just commit to living our lives and again doing it in a respectful way, it is tough because like I have family members that are right, I have family members that are left, and like it is really, really hard. Like if a viewpoint is so extreme, you some people's minds you're just not going to be able to alter.
Ooh, yeah.
But at least if you could try in a respectful way and try to understand why maybe they have the viewpoint you do, or they do, which is self-admittedly very difficult to do. At least you could leave with like an understanding of why they have their viewpoint.
Um, I love the idea of having conversations. That could be a great series. And it made me think of what there's a value in disagreement. Um, I say, yeah, we're gonna, any one of us may have a what, like an orientation that leans one way or another and is, infinitely spread out, like butter over wheat toast. You could probably break down the 330 million Americans or whatever it is, and not every single person, when they fully broke down their beliefs, would fit fully into whatever category, or make the same category. If you you know what I'm saying? If you broke down all the different topics, all the 300 million Americans, on if you the deeper you go into each person's thinking, they might be different than the
I
person
agree.
to the left, the
I
person to the
definitely
right.
think that's the case. I think there's people that are like identify as more conservative, but if you like went policy by policy, they'd probably be like liberal on many things and then the opposite, you know. It's just yeah, when it's so extreme and just people don't want to chat about it, or there's so much
I
personal
can't
at
let
stake.
nothing, yeah, we can't let our identity superimpose itself on others. It's because like I can't be with you in a room if you don't agree with every single point that I'm living my worldview out at. And it's like that is when that's happening in a society, there's bigger fish to fry beyond just political. Like the political is like the broker. It's like the team meeting. There's bigger organizational misfirings going on that are influencing that.
I think it keeps people like debating politics is like just the natural modern form of religion. It just keeps people kind of distracted from improving their own life when you can just, because at the end of the day, it's like we have such minimal control over so many of these things. And as mentioned, life, especially in the West, is the best it's ever been. So it's like it's an easy distraction from improving your own areas of life, improving your own relationships and financial situation and
Yeah,
your own
great point.
community, because it's just you can just blame and debate all these things, which again, I'm guilty of all those things. Get
Well,
your own house in order before you criticize the world. That's Jordan Peterson's thing. It's like it's easier to just I think I butchered that quote a little, but yeah.
no, that was great. Put your I actually that's book one, and
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
it's
12
rule
rules for life, right?
6. Because stand up straight, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. Make friends with people that want the best for you. Let's compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone else's today. That's 4. Do not let your children do things that make you dislike them is rule 5, and rule 6 is put your house in perfect order before you criticize the world, I think. But I have it right here. I actually forgot a lot of them. I did that I'm supposed to do that series on the first book. I did it on the third book. Yeah, it's set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Good, great. And it's an guess well, Jeremy, I appreciate you taking the time to do this for Charlie's 32nd birthday. And the hope here, why are we talking about this of all things on the Culture Matters podcast? And that's because um, the purpose has always been to uncover genius and make curiosity cool. Okay, the goal to make curiosity cool, curiosity as an interaction, as an engagement with the world, and that takes more than one line of thinking. That takes all lines of thinking. And this tragedy is exemplary of the bridge. There's fractures in the bridge. There needs to be a bridge for all sides to walk across. And the vision is that um, we're leading those conversations and the future conversations around business and culture and leaders and companies and people that are changing the world. And so, I'd like this platform to be the bridge, and I've tried to do the best I can for it to be that in each conversation. And so, in the spirit of what you said earlier, I think we'll be doing a lot of, well, we've tried to do, I would say, not good, not nearly well enough, what you mentioned earlier about having those with differing views. I've tried to, where I'm at right now with it is just trying to listen as best possible to those that, I constantly have people on the show that I disagree with everything that's coming out of their mouth, but instead of arguing, I just try to listen. Um, 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 and that's kind of where I'm at in my journey, is the listening part. But I'd like to have more dialogue with people that I have, my own opinions on. And hopefully this is a foreshadow to that. And what better topic than to, one of the things I found in my own life is that when really terrible things happen, it's a wake-up call for me. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell am I doing wrong that I could do better? And that was this for me too. If I really think culture matters, I should share more of my opinions.
Well, I think that's the one of the unique gifts that you and me always have is like we've debated on stuff for like hours and then we just like get over it and like we're like if anything it just makes us like closer. I think yeah, I think that's a lost art form. And again, it is difficult. There's times when you just people really frustrate you or you want to bang your head against the wall, whatever, but that's something I think again relative. Could we improve? Absolutely. But compared to so many people, I think you and me are both good at having those conversations with people. And I actually kind of enjoy it. Like I embrace that uncomfortable feeling. It's like because you don't get that feeling except in those super awkward conversations. It's like some sort of a high, like it's a oh, this is kind of uncomfortable and cringy and I'm here for it, you know?
Well, if you're listening to this podcast, please share this with someone that you care about, maybe even someone that didn't know Charlie or think they knew who he may not have been. So maybe share this with somebody that doesn't like who they think he was or doesn't agree with everything that he said, and maybe we'll show them an other sides of it. I don't
Well,
think. Yeah.
one final thought I'll share that just if you have mixed opinions of Charlie or just weren't the biggest fan or were his biggest fan, I think the gift that he had was if you remember the South Park episode that aired a few months ago, he thought it was hilarious, even though they were just making fun of him the whole episode. And so, I mean, if that doesn't say, because he could have, mean tweeted about it and screw South Park, but he just watched it and laughed. And I mean, how many people do that have major political influence on either side? That's that's admirable.
Yeah, that made me. I want to say now. I want to share. You have a damn good point about that, and quite frankly, the imagine the how I would look at from a culture standpoint. Whomever is in the highest office of the country, the one of the foundational roles is to unify people. It's to bring the people together towards something greater, a vision. It's like you have to have the sales and the operations working together as a team. You have to have all departments working together, and they don't think the same. They're not the same human beings. They don't have the same ontology. And so I think based on seeing his early life, if he were to continue to get better at that and continue to grow like you're talking about, which I think he was growing, when he's twice his age, if in his 60s, he could have been a leader that would, you know, bring people together and maybe surprise a lot of people.
I
That's what
agree.
is we need people on that can their behavior transcends their political persuasion. Their behavior, how they talk to and I don't see that leadership on my personal opinion either side of the aisle at large. At the scale that would be necessary to like have a functioning, successful company.
Yeah. Trump
So I
does
think
50% of it well. He's like good at identifying a problem and like getting people kind of like in somewhat agreement of this as a problem, but then like how he executes is ultra polarizing, and I think that's, yeah, like, so it's, yeah, like a Charlie type is the one that can kind of like what Reagan did. I mean, in hindsight, you could offer kind of all, like, you could even say Bill Clinton had this like component to it. He would take things and
A good
just
example.
make Reagan and Clinton, I think, were both good
Trump is the
at it.
takeover CEO. You know, you have a failing business, you take it over, you buy it out of bankruptcy, you cut staff, you know, burn silos, you rebuild your power base. That then you need to get an executive in there to create unity and to like figure, you know, read essentially build an operating system and develop management and it
Yeah,
like
that's a good kind of
so
metaphor there.
maybe
I would agree.
Charlie could, you know, if he aged, you know, someday, and it's not, I'm saying nonpartisan culture. This is like, and that's where I think the founders were geniuses. It swings, you know, you get sometimes left, sometimes right,
And the
sometimes
parties don't even mean anything
left.
anyway because like like Trump is like a Democrat. I mean, he's like Bernie Sanders when it comes to like getting US ownership of Intel. And so it's like the modern parties don't even mean like,
I've never met a conservative or a liberal. I meet people. I
yeah,
know
yeah.
Jeremy, who has parents and will have kids someday, and has friends and enemies, and you know I know Bob and Mary, and you know this whole construct. It's a construct. It's just, you know, what are we even, what? It's a necessary construct to just like decide and make decisions. But I've never met a conservative or a liberal. I meet people. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
to your
literally.
point, it could have been a candidate that just, you're always going to have your like extreme, but he could have been a candidate that truly would get independents and like moderate liberals to be like, this is a guy that cares about the country and cares about people and like had like true um support. Yeah, I think he
Or
had
like
that potential with
or
age. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like Van Jones, like he could have been the enemy, the adversary that the next leader in the future that was on the other side of the aisle needed to meet and to experience to have a realization, or man, maybe
Yeah.
it could be a bit less ideological. You know, what am I even fighting for? Am I fighting to win, or am I fighting? It's like the thing with Rule 10 and Beyond Order: plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. Are you having the conversation with your spouse to win the fight or to get the outcome together?
It's a good question. I gotta remind myself of that.
That just pops in there. Well, I guess we should challenge people to read some of that literature at this point. That, you know, Beyond Order's great book, 12 Rules. Um, and there's plenty of great, actually, I should say, you know, The Joyful Wisdom. Jeremy unintentionally quoted aphorism number 321. And just get the book and The New Precaution. It's about taking responsibility for your own life. So go pick up that book. Share this with someone that you care for that may have even a different opinion. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks for doing this, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jay.